Every once in a while, a woman comes along who's just so darn dangerous, she earns a spot on the FBI's official Most Wanted list. Ignatova is the latest addition.
A Bulgarian woman has been placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for allegedly running a cryptocurrency scam.
Surprisingly, there have only been 11 women in this notorious lineup since the list's debut back in 1950. So, without further ado, let's meet the women who've been menacing enough to earn a spot on this infamous list. Ruja Ignatova. Ruja Plemenova Ignatova was born in a small town in Bulgaria on May 30th, 1980. But little did anyone know that this seemingly ordinary girl would later become one of the most famous fraudsters in history. When Ruja was 10 years old, her family moved to Germany in search of a better life and more opportunities. It was in Germany that she began her journey towards notoriety. Ruja was a very smart student, always eager to learn. She excelled in her studies and eventually went to the University of Constance to earn a PhD in private international law. While at university, Ruja's brilliance caught the attention of prestigious consulting firm McKinsey & Company. She was offered a position, and it seemed as though her future was destined for success and prosperity. However, Ruja had other plans brewing in her mind. In 2012, Ruja's true colors began to emerge when she and her father, Plamen Ignatov, were convicted of fraud in Germany. The duo had acquired a company that quickly went bankrupt, leaving a trail of financial ruin in their wake. This setback, however, did not deter Ruja. In 2014, Ruja founded OneCoin, a cryptocurrency scheme that would go on to deceive millions of unsuspecting investors. OneCoin was marketed as a revolutionary cryptocurrency that would rival Bitcoin. Ignatova promised investors huge returns and painted a picture of a bright and prosperous future. People from all walks of life, from seasoned investors to everyday individuals looking to make a quick buck, were drawn into the scheme. Ignatova's marketing strategy was built on exclusivity and secrecy. She created a sense of urgency, making potential investors feel like they were part of an exclusive club. She held extravagant events and conferences where she would take the stage and captivate the audience with her vision of a new financial revolution. But the truth was far from what Ignatova portrayed. OneCoin was nothing more than a pyramid scheme where new investors' money was used to pay off earlier investors. There was no real cryptocurrency behind it, no blockchain technology to support its claims. It was all smoke and mirrors. To maintain the illusion of legitimacy, Ignatova and her team created a complex network of fake accounts and false documentation. They manipulated numbers and figures to make it seem like OneCoin was thriving and growing. But in reality, it was all a facade. As the scheme grew, so did Ignatova's wealth. She lived a life of luxury, surrounded by opulence and excess. She flaunted her wealth, further enticing others to invest in OneCoin. But beneath the surface, the cracks were starting to show. In 2017, as police investigations into OneCoin intensified, Ignatova disappeared. She had been tipped off about the mounting evidence against her and managed to evade capture. Investors were left in shock and disbelief, realizing they had been duped by the crypto queen. In early 2019, she was charged in absentia by U.S. authorities for wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Her brother, Konstantin Ignatov, pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering in connection with the scheme. In June 2022, the FBI added Ruja Ignatova to its 10 most wanted fugitives list, solidifying her status as the most wanted woman in the world. The German authorities also issued an international Interpol warrant for her arrest, intensifying the global manhunt. Since then, the true extent of the OneCoin scam has come to light. It is estimated that the scheme defrauded investors out of billions of dollars. Lives were ruined, savings were lost, and dreams were shattered. Ignatova's empire of deception had crumbled, but the repercussions of her actions continued to be felt. The fallout from the OneCoin scandal has been far-reaching. Governments and regulators worldwide are taking strong action against fake cryptocurrency schemes. They're making rules to keep investors safe. Despite the efforts of law enforcement agencies, Ignatova remains at large. The question on everyone's mind is, where is Ruja Ignatova? Some speculate that she is hiding in plain sight, using her resources and connections to evade capture. Others believe she has gone underground, relying on a network of loyal followers to protect her. Amid the search, shocking revelations have emerged. Prosecutors in Darmstadt, Germany, confirmed an investigation into a lawyer from Neu-Isenburg for possible money laundering. This development suggests that Ignatova may have been involved in a larger network of criminal activity, further complicating the case. The FBI, however, operates under the assumption that Ignatova is still alive. Despite rumors of her murder in November 2018 on the orders of a Bulgarian drug lord, there is no concrete evidence to support this claim. The investigation into Ignatova is operating under the assumption that she is still alive, with no information to counter that belief. As the search for Ignatova continues, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies are relying on the help of the public. A reward of up to $250,000 has been offered for information leading to her arrest. This substantial sum serves as an incentive for anyone with knowledge of her whereabouts to come forward. Bernardine Ray Dorn, born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, Bernardine Ornstein would go on to become a famous mysterious and controversial American figure. She grew up in the well-off suburb of Whitefish Bay, Milwaukee, in a Christian Scientist family, enjoying a life of privilege. But beneath her seemingly perfect childhood, a passion was quietly growing. When Bernardine was a teenager, she noticed unfair things happening around her. Her dad, who was Jewish, changed their last name to Dorn to hide their Jewish background. Bernardine discovered her passion for activism in high school. She went to Whitefish Bay High School, where she did great in her studies and joined many clubs. She was a cheerleader and handled money for the Modern Dance Club. She was part of the National Honor Society and even edited the school newspaper. She was very active and accomplished a lot, but it was her involvement in the civil rights movement that truly ignited her revolutionary spirit. While studying political science at the University of Chicago, Bernardine became deeply committed to the cause of racial equality. Inspired by the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr., she joined the ranks of those fighting for justice and equality. Bernardine's strong interest in civil rights led her to become the first law student organizer for the National Lawyers Guild. This well-known organization supports the rights of marginalized people. In the late 1960s, Bernardine's work in civil rights connected with the radical student activism of the time. She became a leader in the Revolutionary Youth Movement, a group within Students for a Democratic Society, known for their radical views. It was in this group that Bernardine's revolutionary ideas started to develop. In June 1969, Bernardine and 10 other REM members released a long document called "You Don't Need a Weatherman to Know Which Way the Wind Blows." It was influenced by Bob Dylan's song, Subterranean Homesick Blues, and talked about their ideas for a world without social classes and the end of U.S. imperialism. The strong language and the call for revolution in the document laid the foundation for the Weather Underground's violent actions. As the 1970s dawned, Bernardine's involvement with the Weather Underground intensified. The group, now fully committed to armed struggle against the U.S. government, embarked on a campaign of bombings targeting symbols of American power. The United States Capitol, the Pentagon, and several police stations in New York all fell victim to their violent acts. By this time, Bernardine Dorn had become a central figure in the Weather Underground. Because of her strong leadership and dedication to her cause, law enforcement agencies saw her as a top priority. In the early 1970s, she was put on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list, but the story of Bernardine Dorn was far from over. Despite the intense scrutiny and relentless pursuit by the FBI, she remained a fugitive, evading capture and continuing her revolutionary activities. As Bernardine Dorn's notoriety grew, so did the intensity of the search to capture her. With her name plastered on wanted posters and her face appearing in newspapers across the nation, she became a symbol of resistance against the establishment. For several years, Bernardine managed to evade capture, constantly changing her appearance and using aliases to stay hidden. She moved from city to city, never staying in one place for too long. The fear of being recognized and apprehended was a constant presence in her life. While on the run, Bernardine stayed committed to her revolutionary beliefs. She stayed in touch with other Weather Underground members and joined secret efforts to oppose the government. She and her husband, Bill Ayers, also wrote a radical manifesto called Prairie Fire, which fueled their radical goals. But the weight of living in constant fear and isolation began to take its toll on Bernardine. The years spent on the run had strained her relationships and left her longing for a sense of normalcy. The desire for a different life, free from the constant threat of capture, started to outweigh her commitment to the cause. In 1980, after years of living in the shadows, Bernardine made the decision to surrender to authorities. It was a moment that shocked many, as the woman who had eluded the FBI for so long willingly turned herself in. The reasons behind her surrender were complex and deeply personal. Some speculated that Bernardine's decision to surrender was driven by a desire to protect her family. She and Bill Ayers had started a family of their own, and the risks associated with their fugitive lifestyle were not conducive to raising children. Surrendering meant providing a more stable and secure future for their loved ones. Others believed that Bernardine's surrender was a strategic move, a way to shift the narrative and regain control of her own story. By voluntarily stepping out of the shadows, she could shape the public perception of her actions and beliefs. It was a calculated risk, one that would ultimately lead to a new chapter in her life. After giving up, Bernardine had to deal with the law for her role in the Weather Underground's actions. She admitted to lesser charges like aggravated battery and bail jumping, which were not as serious as what others were accused of. She only served 7 months. People were surprised that her punishment was not as harsh, and it made people question if the legal system was fair. After serving her sentence, Bernardine sought to rebuild her life. She went back to school and used her legal knowledge to become a well-respected law professor. She specialized in social justice and laws related to young people, helping those who needed it the most. From 1991 to 2013, she worked as a clinical associate professor of law at Northwestern University School of Law, focusing on helping disadvantaged young people with legal issues and trying to improve the justice system. This allowed her to turn her desire for change into real, positive results. Throughout her post-fugitive years, Bernardine remained a controversial figure. Some saw her as a symbol of radicalism and violence, while others admired her commitment to social justice and her ability to transform her life. Some wondered if a former radical activist should be in academia, but others saw the value in her different viewpoint. Regardless of what people thought, Bernardine was committed to using her expertise to support social justice. She shared her extensive knowledge and real-life experiences with her law students, encouraging them to think deeply about the legal system and its effects on society. Her classes were known for their stimulating conversations and focus on social justice. Donna Jean Wilmot. Donna Jean Wilmot is a name that strikes fear into the hearts of many, but she was not always known as a dangerous fugitive. In fact, she started her journey as a member of the Weather Underground. It was during her time with the Weather Underground that Wilmot became entangled in a plot that would forever change her life. She, along with her partner Claude Daniel Marks, was charged in 1985 with buying and transporting explosives with the intention of blowing up a maximum security prison in Kansas. Their goal? To free Oscar Lopez, a leader of Fuerzas Armadas de Liberación Nacional. This is a Puerto Rican separatist organization, notorious for their use of violence to further their cause. The FBI first caught wind of Wilmot and Marks when Marks purchased what was believed to be 37 pounds of explosives from an undercover agent. However, their plans were foiled when they discovered an FBI monitoring device in their car. Realizing they were being hunted, they fled and went underground, assuming new identities to evade capture. It's difficult to believe that the woman eventually known as Jo Elliott, a well-known figure in her Pittsburgh neighborhood, could have been part of many dangerous plots. She volunteered with the Pittsburgh AIDS Task Force and Children's AIDS Project, spending her time helping others. To those around her, she seemed like a caring mom and a devoted friend, with no idea about her real identity. What no one realized was that beneath her image as a suburban mother, Donna Jean Wilmot was actually a wanted terrorist, living a secret double life. As the years went by, Donna Jean Wilmot continued to live her life underground, completely evading the authorities who were tirelessly searching for her. She had successfully integrated herself into the Pittsburgh community. But behind closed doors, the weight of her past actions must have been a constant burden. The FBI had not forgotten, and the hunt for them continued. It wasn't until 1994, almost a decade after she had gone underground, that the tides began to turn. After almost a year of negotiations, Wilmot and Marks made the decision to surrender themselves to federal authorities in Chicago. It was a shocking turn of events, as the woman who had successfully hidden her true identity for so long was finally facing the consequences of her actions. The surrender marked the end of an era for Donna Jean Wilmot. In May 1995, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison for her involvement in the plot to free Oscar Lopez. Marks, her partner in the crime, received a longer sentence of 6 years due to his larger role. Donna Jean Wilmot's incarceration changed her life and shocked her community. They had known her as Jo Elliott, a trusted and admired person, but she was actually a wanted terrorist. During her 3-year prison sentence, Wilmot had time to think about what she had done and how it affected others. After her release, she faced a new reality. She had served her time, but people still saw her as a former terrorist. Rebuilding her life was tough because she struggled to get acceptance and forgiveness. The community that once knew her well now viewed her with suspicion and judgment. Despite the difficulties, Wilmot remained determined to make amends for her past. She dedicated herself to advocating for peace and reconciliation, using her own experiences as a cautionary tale. Through speaking engagements and community outreach, she aimed to prevent others from following a similar path of violence and extremism. Catherine Ann Power. In the late 1960s, the United States was embroiled in the controversial Vietnam War, and the nation was divided. It was during this tumultuous time that Catherine Ann Power, a young and passionate student at Brandeis University in Massachusetts, found herself drawn to the front lines of the anti-war movement. Power's involvement in student protests against the Vietnam War was fueled by a deep desire for peace and justice. She believed in the power of collective action. She worked tirelessly to organize demonstrations as part of the National Student Strike Force. It was during these protests that she crossed paths with Stanley Ray Bond, a fellow organizer who would play a significant role in shaping the course of her life. Bond, a charismatic and influential figure, introduced Power to a dangerous plot, providing the Black Panther Party with arms. The Black Panther Party was a revolutionary organization that sought to combat racial inequality and oppression. Bond saw an opportunity to make a statement and believed that providing weapons to the Black Panthers would help them in their fight for justice. Power got caught up in Bond's plan during a passionate moment. She didn't realize that this choice would lead her into a life of crime and a bad reputation. Her desire to rebel and her strong belief in a noble cause made her ignore the potential problems her actions could cause. In the year 1970, Power's life took a dark turn. Fueled by a dangerous ideology and a thirst for chaos, she and her accomplices embarked on a series of robberies. Their first target was a Massachusetts National Guard armory, where they stole weapons and ammunition, arming themselves for what lay ahead. But their hunger for power and wealth was not yet satisfied. Their next target was a bank in Brighton, Massachusetts. However, what was meant to be a simple heist quickly turned into a tragedy. city. During the chaos, a courageous police officer died. This saddened the community and made law enforcement even more committed to catching the culprits. Power and her accomplices had become public enemy number one. The FBI swiftly placed Power and her associates on their most wanted fugitives list, branding them as dangerous and armed. With the weight of her crimes hanging over her, Catherine Ann Power found herself thrust into a life on the run. Power and her partner, Susan Edith Sachs, managed to outsmart the authorities by staying on the move. They kept changing where they stayed and found safety in women's communities to avoid drawing attention. To hide her identity, Power used a fake name, May Kelly. Under this new identity, Power lived a life of constant paranoia. Every interaction, every encounter held the potential to expose her true identity and lead to her capture. But she was resourceful and cunning, always managing to stay one step ahead of the law enforcement agencies. After 2 decades, Power's story became the stuff of legend. The FBI's most wanted woman, a fugitive who had managed to elude capture. The media sensationalized her story, painting her as a dangerous and elusive criminal. The public was captivated by the tale of a woman who had seemingly vanished into thin air. But behind the scenes, Power's life as a fugitive was far from glamorous. It was a life filled with constant anxiety, loneliness, and the ever-present fear of being discovered. She had left behind her family, her friends, and any semblance of a normal life. The world had become hostile and unforgiving, and she was trapped in a never-ending game of cat and mouse. Throughout her time as a fugitive, Power remained committed to her cause. She continued to hold on to her beliefs, even as the world around her changed. The political landscape shifted, and the Vietnam War came to an end, but Power's resolve remained unyielding. But as the years turned into decades, the weight of her actions began to take its toll. The guilt and remorse grew stronger with each passing day. Power knew she could not continue to live in the shadows, haunted by the past. And so, after 23 long years, she made the decision to surrender herself to the authorities. When she surrendered, it surprised everyone and got people talking about her again. The woman who had been on the run for a long time was finally caught and had to deal with the legal system. She admitted her guilt, took responsibility for what she did, and got a 6-year sentence. But even behind bars, Power refused to let her life go to waste. She was determined to turn her life around and took every chance to improve herself. She got her bachelor's and master's degrees while in prison. Her strong desire to learn and make up for her past led her to succeed in her studies, making her time in prison a time of personal growth. After serving her time, Power was released on probation. She returned to Oregon, where she formed a family and pursued graduate studies. The scars of her past remained, but she was determined to forge a new path, one that would make a positive impact on the world. Today, Catherine Ann Power resides in the Boston area, working for Cambridge Cares About AIDS, an organization dedicated to supporting those affected by the disease. Power's story has captivated the public, been the basis for books, and even inspired an episode of the popular television show Law & Order. Ruja is still on the run, but Bernardine, Donna, and Catherine Power turned themselves in. It's important to note that none of them were captured. Now, let's explore the stories of those who were caught. What about the ones that were caught? Let's talk about Shanika S. Minor, who gained notoriety when she was added to the FBI's list of most wanted women for a violent incident in Milwaukee. It all started when Minor's mother mentioned to her daughter that her neighbor had been playing loud music late at night. This seemingly innocent comment would set off a chain of events that would lead to tragedy, fueled by a sense of disrespect towards her family. Minor confronted the neighbor on the street, armed with a semi-automatic weapon. In a desperate attempt to defuse the situation, Minor's mother ran out to intervene. Despite her mother's efforts, Minor's anger was not quelled. A week later, in the early hours of the morning, Minor entered the neighbor's duplex through the common hallway. It was there that she encountered the woman at her rear door, sealing their fate. Minor's mother, once again, rushed to the scene, placing herself between the two women. But in a shocking display of violence, Minor reached over her mother and shot the woman in the chest. The victim's life was tragically cut short, dying almost instantly. Even more heart-wrenching, the victim was pregnant, and her unborn child, due within a week, also lost its life before the ambulance could arrive. Minor quickly became a fugitive on the run. For months, law enforcement agencies across the country tirelessly searched for her, while the victim's family mourned the loss of their loved ones. But justice would not be denied. Just 3 days after being added to the FBI's most wanted list, Minor's time as a fugitive came to an end. In the early hours of July 1st, 2016, she was apprehended in a North Carolina motel. Now, let's talk about Brenda Delgado, who ended up on the FBI's most wanted list because she was jealous and wanted revenge. In 2015, she became a target of the FBI due to her suspected role in the murder of Dr. Kendra Hatcher. Delgado's story shows how extreme jealousy and a desire for revenge revenge can lead someone to do terrible things. Hatcher, a pediatric dentist, had unknowingly become the target of Delgado's wrath due to her romantic involvement with Delgado's ex-boyfriend. This jilted lover narrative quickly gained traction in news sources covering Hatcher's murder and Delgado's subsequent arrest. Authorities believed that Delgado's motive for the crime stemmed from the discovery that Hatcher had been introduced to her ex-boyfriend's parents and that the couple was planning a vacation to Cancun. Fueled by jealousy and a sense of betrayal, Delgado hatched a sinister plan to eliminate the woman she saw as a threat to her happiness. Delgado enlisted the help of 2 accomplices, bribing them with money and drugs. According to the FBI, Delgado claimed that the funds and narcotics came from her connections to Mexican cartels. With her plan in motion, the stage was set for the calculated act of violence. In the parking garage of Hatcher's apartment complex in Dallas, the murder plot unfolded. Delgado's accomplices carried out her orders, taking the life of an innocent woman caught in the crosshairs of a twisted love triangle. As news of the murder spread, Delgado went into hiding, evading capture and leaving authorities determined to bring her to justice. 2 days before her eventual apprehension in Coahuila, Mexico, the FBI added the 33-year-old dental hygienist to their most wanted list, warning the public that she should be considered armed and dangerous. Finally, on April 8, 2016, Delgado's time on the run came to an end. She was taken into custody and charged with murder and avoiding prosecution. The arrest marked the beginning of a legal process that would seek to hold Delgado accountable for her alleged role in the heinous crime that had shattered the lives of those connected to Dr. Kendra Hatcher. Moving on from Delgado, let's dive into the story of Shawntae L. Henderson, a woman known for her violent actions in her hometown, Kansas City, Missouri. Henderson's story is filled with violence, gang conflicts, and a reign of terror that caused a lot of damage. Her journey into a life of crime started with a shocking act in September 2006 when she was accused of the murder of DeAndre Parker, a 21-year-old shot in his truck near a convenience store. This incident shocked the community because Henderson was already known as a suspected murderer and a member of the notorious 12th Street Gang. Authorities believed she was connected to not just Parker's murder, but also 5 other homicides and up to 50 gang-related shootings. After the September shooting, Henderson kept a low profile, disappearing into the shadows. However, her thirst for violence and power would not be quelled. She re-emerged, allegedly orchestrating and participating in a series of violent acts that further fueled the flames of gang warfare. But justice would eventually catch up with Henderson. Law enforcement agencies, determined to put an end to her reign of terror, found her in Kansas City the same day she was added to the FBI most wanted list. She was arrested and subsequently convicted of voluntary manslaughter and armed criminal action, facing the consequences of her violent actions. Henderson served 3 years in jail for her crimes, but her freedom was short-lived. In 2010, just months after her release, she was arrested once again, this time for possession of a firearm. The justice system showed no leniency, as she received additional sentences for both weapon possession and violating the terms of her probation. Now, let's explore a story which stirred up a lot of controversy. In 1970, Angela Yvonne Davis became a major figure in a famous case that led to her running from the police and being put on the FBI's most wanted list. The charges against her were about murder and kidnapping, but according to the New York Times, she wasn't actually present during the kidnappings and murders. Instead, she was charged because she had helped obtain the guns used in the crime, thanks to a California law that treated helpers just as responsible. The guns in question were used during a courthouse kidnapping that resulted in the deaths of 4 individuals, including a judge. Davis's involvement in the case made her a target of law enforcement. After her arrest, Davis faced a highly publicized trial that garnered international attention. The case became a lightning rod for discussions on race, politics, and the criminal justice system. In 1972, Davis was acquitted of all charges, clearing her name and solidifying her status as a prominent political activist. Following her acquittal, Davis went on to become a leading voice in the fight for prisoners' rights, an advocate for social justice, and an influential scholar. Her post at the University of California, Santa Cruz allowed her to continue her work in academia, where she explored issues of race, gender, and the intersections of oppression. We can't forget to mention the first woman who made it into this list. Marie Dean Arrington's story is one of tragedy, revenge, and a relentless pursuit of freedom. Arrington's descent into a life of crime began in 1968 when she was incarcerated for the violent murder of Vivian June Ritter, the Secretary of Florida Public Defender Bob Pierce. The motive behind the murder was a twisted desire for closure, as Arrington sought revenge after Pierce unsuccessfully defended both of her children in separate criminal cases. When Arrington couldn't find Pierce at his office, she took his secretary hostage, shooting her multiple times and running her over with Ritter's own car. This brutal act of violence was part of a plan to ensure her son's release from a lifetime prison sentence. The severity of Arrington's crimes did not end with the murder of Vivian Ritter. manslaughter. Before her incarceration, she had already been convicted of manslaughter for the death of her husband. While out on bail awaiting sentencing for that crime, she committed the heinous act that would ultimately lead to her life behind bars. In 1971, Arrington was caught while waitressing in New Orleans and was given the death penalty for her crimes. However, the Supreme Court later ruled the death penalty unconstitutional, and her sentence was commuted to life in prison. But even behind bars, Arrington's violent tendencies persisted. Over the years, she accumulated a staggering 61 violations for various offenses, including possession of weapons, drugs, battery, and inciting a riot. Her time in prison was marked by a disregard for rules and a continued involvement in criminal activities. However, Arrington's story took a dramatic turn when she dared escape from the Marion County Prison in Florida. She managed to evade security measures and flee, leaving law enforcement agencies scrambling to recapture her. She was then placed on the FBI's most wanted list. Unfortunately for Arrington, her newfound taste of freedom was short-lived. In the same year as her escape, she was apprehended once again and returned to prison. Her bid for freedom had come to an end, and she would spend the remainder of her days behind bars. In 2014, Arrington died at the Lowell Correctional Institution Annex in Florida, 45 years after an escape attempt. In 1968, a woman named Isamond Shear hatched a plan to kidnap 20-year-old Barbara Jane Mackle, who came from a wealthy family in Florida. She thought Mackle's family could pay a big ransom to get her back safely. So, on December 17, 1968, Isamond Shear and her partner, Gary Stephen Christ, snatched Mackle from a motel room in Atlanta. It was a carefully thought-out scheme with a daring abduction and a race against the clock to collect a hefty ransom. They buried her alive in a box, a foot and a half underground, equipped with an air pump, food, water, and a battery-powered lamp. The kidnappers demanded a staggering $500,000 in $20 bills for her release. The clock was ticking as law enforcement agencies and the victim's family worked tirelessly to secure her safe return. After 83 hours of captivity, Mackle was miraculously rescued on December 20th, 1968. While Mackle was saved, Isamond Shear managed to evade capture, becoming the first woman to be placed on the FBI's most wanted list. On December 28th, she was officially added to the list, and on January 3rd, 1969, she was indicted for kidnapping. However, Isamond Shear's time as a fugitive came to an end on March 55, 1969, when she was finally captured. If you enjoyed this video, click on the card showing on your screen right now for more videos.